Welcome to Stories of Brisco and Bradshaw. I would be Bradshaw, joined as always by the WWE Hall of Famer, Chickasaw Hall of Famer, Chickasaw native, Oklahoma's favorite son, Mr. Gerald Brisco. We got a treat today because we got one of the most colorful characters in wrestling history, Mr. Plowboy Stan Frazier. We've got the book here, and we've got the author here, Mr. Kurt Nielsen, who is about as interesting from his music in the 70s to his writing right now in the 2020s as Plowboy Frazier. So, Kurt, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure it is to be here with both of you. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. I was looking up your bio, which is always fun for us because generally guys who write about wrestling are creative guys, and you are certainly one of them. You go from singing in the 70s to you've done everything. You've had a pretty fun life.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If you want to do it, go for it, I figure. So wrestling was one of the things that I did, and got to follow your creative muse in life, I figure.
Kurt, I always like to ask, how did the bug bite you for wrestling? I mean, you got all these other accomplishments and all the things. Out of all the things in the world, you wrestling and you end up writing about.
Well, wrestling was always a big part of my growing up. I kind of talk about it in my book. I watched wrestling with my dad, and my dad had me late in life. He was born in 1914. So
wow.
When I was born, he was almost 60 years old.
So was Mr. Brisco.
Yeah.
Close run.
Yeah, when I was born, he was almost 60 years old. So he came with all of these stories and all of this history that a child my age wouldn't have gotten from their parent. They might have gotten from their grandparents. But we watched wrestling together, and he watched wrestling back in the 40s and 50s, and he had a lot of the historical background, which got me interested because anything that we would watch, he'd say, "Oh, I remember this guy," and
what part of the country was that?
My dad lived up in the Pacific Northwest, but he was also a merchant marine for 20 years. He traveled a lot, and he lived up in the Seattle area.
So you got to see some of the really old greats moving around like that too.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah,
my dad's you wasn't stuck like with Channel 17 or Portland Wrestling exclusive. You had it all.
Yeah, we had the Portland Wrestling. It was called Big Time Wrestling up in our area, but it was great. So, back in my day, it was Playboy Buddy Rose, Ed Wiskoski, Jimmy Snuka. We had some great stuff. But I actually started watching the Roy Shire promotion in the late 70s. We lived in the Bay Area, then we moved up to Seattle. So, oddly enough, it was Buddy Rose was the first match that I saw.
Yeah. Was Pat still there with Roy Shire?
At that point in time, I think he was with the AWA, but he came in from time to time, as did Ray Stevens.
Yeah. What a great tag team. And Big Time Wrestling, wasn't that the name also of Ed McLemore's group in Dallas that Fritz bought? He bought Big Time Wrestling, right? Same name, probably not
sounds about right.
Yeah.
A lot of repetition.
So your dad got to witness like the birth of TV wrestling with Gorgeous George and all the guys.
Yeah, he did. And his favorite was a guy named Danny Savage, who he wrestled out of Texas. So that makes me think that they got the Texas feed out on the West Coast. And certainly they would have gotten the matches from Chicago as well. So you would have gotten a sampler of different things. Yeah, then my dad would have watched, what was that one network, the Dumont Network.
Yeah.
Dumont Network,
yeah. So, but he was very, I would see a big smile on his face. Anytime certain performers would come up, he'd see a certain move. And it made me know that there was something more to this than just what was in front of me. There was depth, just like how certain parents would watch baseball with their kids and they would talk about, a wonderful game that they saw when they were a child.
Right.
They get very nostalgic. That was my dad with wrestling. So he didn't like any other sport.
Really?
Yeah, it was just wrestling. Yeah.
And who were your favorites growing up?
Well, I loved the local stars. Plowboy was, when he was Uncle Elmer, that was a big thing. I like the guys who could really grapple. I love Les Thornton. There was something about that British style. Johnny Eagles was another guy who did that as well. There was something about that technical mat work that I really, really appreciated. And I also like the older guys. We had Stan Stasiak up there and Dutch Savage as well. And of course Nick Bockwinkel was, top of the pops for me. So Yeah.
So tell us how this, because you like Plowboy Frazier. You didn't just write a book about him. You really liked him. Was the reason. Tell us about why you liked Plowboy Frazier so much.
The moment I saw him, there was something about the guy. He was so different than anybody out there. There was a warmth to him. There was a depth to him. Obviously, he couldn't do very much. You know, when he came to the WWF in the mid 1980s, he was deep into his 40s and older and injured. But there was a charisma there. There was a warmth, and I don't know. There was a spirit to him that I really latched on to. You know, and back then there were guys like Ivan Putski. You know, Ivan Putski, people loved him, despite the fact that he really didn't do too much, but he had this personality, and people locked into that. And obviously he became a superstar. He was like the number 2 or 3 guy for a long time up in the Northeast, despite the fact he couldn't do too much, you know.
I'm just amazed at that time frame, the size of Uncle Elmer. I mean, how big
huge.
He was actually. He was legit, what, 6'9", something like that?
He was 6'10", yeah.
6'10", wow, that's bigger than John. And,
oh, yeah. Well,
not quite as heavy as John's becoming. But,
oh, of course. Well, as soon as you saw him, I mean, immediately, he filled you with awe, and he made that impact. And you know, he could have gotten by just on his size alone, but to have the personality, to have the stories, just, I mean, what a character he was. There was a lot to him.
Well, growing up, he grew up in what, rural Mississippi, Pascagoula?
Yeah, Pascagoula is where he spent most of his life. So down there, in the Gulf Coast area. Yeah. And
what kind of background was he? Did he play football, or was he athletic?
Well, he was a merchant marine for a while. He tried out. He was actually in the Navy for a short period of time, but he was too big to really do all the things he was supposed to do. So that didn't last very long. That's 6 months. But he did play semi-pro football. They had a team called the Gulf Coast Hurricanes. It didn't last too long, but he was part of that. Of course, he'll tell you that he played semi-pro football for 7 years. That's not true. He also said he played for the Chicago Bears and wrestled for the United States amateur wrestling team. But
wait. I find this hard to believe that a wrestler has made up a bio.
Yeah, really. I find this, not in our business.
This stretches the credulity. This is, I don't buy it.
Well, the thing about Frazier, though, is everybody knew that he could spin a tale that would just go into these crazy places. And it was so entertaining that, like, for example, Jerry Lawler loved it. He would just let him sit in the dressing room and just throw the bull roar around. And you know, it was Jerry's personal entertainment. You know, watch the young boys like nodding their head, like, you know, and it's just, of course, it was all just a big joke. But no, and in researching the book, it's near impossible to find the absolute truth with him. I mean, he's long gone. And I would read these articles, and they were just ridiculous to legitimate news sources, and everything. You just start peeling the onion and like, well, this isn't true. This isn't true. Most of what I have in my book, to the best of my knowledge, is true. But even there, that's why I had to put a disclaimer in there, you know.
But you know what? It was very much like politics were like everything else. Back in the 90s, everybody was still making up stuff. So they'd say one thing in Milwaukee, and then they'd say something completely different in Cleveland. Whoever audience they were with, you know, they'd cater to them. Well, then the internet came around, and all of a sudden, all these politicians realized these are some lying bastards. You know?
Oh yeah.
But up until then, you weren't really able to catch them. Wrestlers were kind of the same, you know, back in the 70s and 80s. Believe it or not, you could say, oh, I wrestled so-and-so. Oh, I got in a fight in the bar. Oh, I was a freaking Navy SEAL. I played pro football. So you could say whatever you wanted because it was really hard to disprove. Nowadays, all you do is grab a phone, and within seconds, you can find out if it's true or not. But back then, you couldn't.
No, you could not. But that's part of the appeal of Stan Frazier to me. He was almost like a fairy tale character, and of his own creation. All of these stories, all of his legends made him more interesting to me. It didn't detract from who he was. It just made it more fascinating.
He just seemed like a fun guy. I mean, just like he's full of shit. But who cares? Those guys are fun. You love those guys around, especially if they can tell stories. Who cares if it's true? It seemed like he was just a fun guy that everybody liked.
Absolutely. And Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett were both very, very close with him. And they gave him more opportunities than any other promoter because they knew they could work around his business. They could work around his personality. Obviously, you could bring him into a small town and, oh my gosh, look at this giant. But they did so many gimmicks with him because they knew what he was capable of. And he was in on the joke, he was happily ridiculous,
Well, that is a question. I mean, I had the opportunity of working with him. I got a great story. We worked with him in a 6-man tag in Key West, Florida.
Oh, yes.
And my grandma, my brother, and I I can't remember who Sam's partner was. The two partners were. But anyway, just as we were leaving to wrapping up the show, we got a news from the highway patrolman that there was a fire on a 7-mile bridge, whatever the mileage is on that bridge, leaving Key West. We couldn't get out for 3 days. Oh Eddie had a plane come in and fly us out, a private plane, but we couldn't get on any commercial planes. But and Sam wouldn't fit in the private planes at all.
No way.
So we had to leave him there. So
no.
We left him there. Key West, he didn't care, man. It was a good time, man. But it took 3 days for us to finally get a charter plane. Eddie get a charter plane and get us up when we finally found out that the bridge was going to be closed a few more days. And so we couldn't get more shows. So Eddie airlifted it. Everybody except Stan all out of Key.
How long did it take him to get back?
It took another 2 days for the bridge to open up. We got it back.
Wow. Well, in his case, as long as there was enough food, I'm sure he was happy.
Yeah. Well,
If you're stuck at any place, Key West is the place to get stuck.
Oh yeah.
The Duval crawl.
Oh man.
Yeah, he wrestled many times.
He wrestled down there only sporadically. They usually called him Cowboy Frazier down there.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know what a plowboy was.
Yeah.
Right.
And then later on in his career, when he finally got to WWE, and I was up there, and I knew what I was doing. I bought a Rolex from him. I call them Bolex. I paid $50 for that thing. I wore that around with pride for years and years.
Oh yeah.
So Jerry, let me ask you, because I've bought fake Rolexes. We used to get them when we went to Korea to work. That was a big thing we did. We buy a bunch of fake Rolexes.
Yeah.
But the difference was always that the second hand would not sweep, but it would tick.
Yeah.
Was that what it was with the?
Exactly. That's how you could tell them apart all the time. That's the reason they went from R to a B for Bolex.
That's right. Yeah. It ticked. It was the only thing. Yeah.
Mike Hagstrom, when Road Warrior Hulk got drunk one night. We were drunk. Imagine that, getting drunk with one of the Road Warriors. He wanted to buy the watch off of me, and I said, I bought it from Stan Frazier. I don't care. Oh, I love that watch. It looked. It was a beautiful watch.
Oh yeah.
I paid $50 for it. He was going to give me $100 right on the spot for it. Finally, I said, I got this watch from Stan Frazier. I don't care. It's a beautiful watch. And I wouldn't sell it because I wanted to keep it there.
Tell us about the watches. This is great. Everybody who knows Stan knows about the watches.
And probably everybody bought one because Stan was such a good guy and you knew what you were getting. But
right. I didn't buy one from him, but I bought one. I knew it was fake. I 100% knew it was fake. I bought 2 or 3.
Just having a fake Rolex or Rolex was worth it.
Well, if you saw it from a distance, you wouldn't have any idea. And people thought, oh, look at that. He's got so much swagger, so much style. But yeah, I mean, Stan was always selling a dream, wasn't he?
Wait. Do you know anything about the watch scam? Now, I don't think it's a scam because people knew they were fake. So I'm not going to say scam's not a fair word to use. But did you know about the fake watch? Where did he get them? When did this start? I mean, this is like the ultimate carny stuff. Like,
it is.
Shows up in the dressing room. By the way, I've got a briefcase full of Rolex watches. Yeah. Wants to buy
and that's what he had too, man.
Well, he had a supplier down in Louisville, Kentucky, and he could go there and buy as many as he wanted. And that was always it. He would just tell people like, hey, you can't really tell I'll sell it to you for this low price. And he was always a salesman. He had a series of stores. He sold clothing. He sold cars for a while. He did all that, but obviously watches were portable, and he could take that in a little case, or in some cases he had a little jacket that he'd open. It was hanging there. It was just like typical thing that you would see like a street salesman. He didn't care where he was or who he was with. He was going to sell those watches because that was his personality, And Vince McMahon told him to stop. He's like, please, just I really wish you wouldn't do this. And he said, okay, I'll try not to. Of course, he kept doing it. He couldn't help
it. He just didn't do it in the dressing room.
Right? Yeah, yeah. No, apparently one person narked on him, and he got really upset about it. But
who narked on him? Do you know?
Oh, I wasn't told. I wasn't told. But
you have an idea?
I can only speculate. Yeah,
speculate.
Oh no. That was
what it would be with an Italian guy playing another indigenous.
Oh my God! Oh my bingo!
What's interesting. If any of the other boys had tried this, they would have been fired on the spot for it. But they saw his worth as a draw and how they could use him in skits, and he was entertaining. He was almost given a pass that other guys were never allowed. It's strange. People forget how over he was as Uncle Elmer. He was really, really over. But that's one of the things. That's why Mr. Fuji never messed with him. Mr. Fuji, I mean, you think Mr. Fuji would have gone right for the jugular. Didn't really touch him at all, which is surprising.
Yeah. Fuji was the one guy that I was scared of.
Of course.
Really. That was,
of course.
He used to talk to me all the time. He was a nice man, but
yes.
I'm like the young guy, he talked to me, and I'm just like sitting there eyeballing him like, what's he doing? What is he up to? What's going to happen to me? I just knew he's going to get me with something.
But oh no, that's what I learned when I was in the wrestling business. Just keep your mouth shut and keep your head down, and no one will mess with you. That's what it was,
And how did Frazier? How did he end up getting into the wrestling business out of Mississippi?
Well, of course, back then the territories.
After his 7-year pro football career.
Yes. Yeah. Well, back then the territories were so strong. He lived in the Gulf Coast, and he wanted to be just like those guys. You had limited options back then of what you could do in general, but for a guy his size, he thought, well, maybe I should try this wrestling thing out. I'm big enough. I'm strong enough. He tried to break in, and that didn't work out so well. I kind of talk about that in the book. He got stretched a bit.
Who stretched him?
Oh, so it was Buddy Fuller had a enforcer referee that he used, and that's the guy who took care of him.
Who was the enforcer referee?
Who's the referee?
He bloodied him up. Why am I blanking on his name right now? Anyway, yeah, it was him. Here, I got my book right in front of me. I don't want to seem like a fool. I wrote the book. I should know right off the top of my head. But yeah, so he came in. Apparently, he used the wrong approach, and he ended up, getting stretched. To teach him to respect.
Sure.
Which it was Charlie Carr. Of course, Charlie Carr.
Charlie Carr, yeah.
Charlie Carr was not a guy you wanted to mess with. But you look at him and think, oh, it was always the bait and switch that they would do. Every territory had a guy that looked like nothing who could just tear you to shreds, and Charlie Carr was that guy. Stan didn't know what he was walking into, and he got bloodied. But he wanted so badly to be in the business. And there was a fellow named Duke Scarborough, who was a referee around Meridian, Mississippi. And he had worked with a traveling giant named Max Palmer. Max Palmer was just a tall guy, had no athletic ability at all. But as a freak show attraction, he was up in Chicago. He did the national tours. So Duke Scarborough figured I could use some of these giant spots and train Stan Frazier. And that's what he did. So,
Jerry, did you know Carr, the referee?
Charlie Carr, I knew him well. Charlie worked in the office down here. Was the guy that that sat in the front door as you come in. Who do you want to see? And he approved all the appointments and made all the appointments for Eddie and Duke and the Bookers and all that stuff.
Pretty good shooter.
Charlie was a good shooter, and Charlie was not a journeyman. I mean, Charlie drew some money in the South, and as he retired, he moved down to Florida, as most of the old wrestlers used to do. And the association with Buddy Fuller and everything at the time, Cowboy Electro was buying that territory from the Fullers. Well, they suggested Charlie work in the office, so that's how he got known. Really good guy, a funny guy to be around, and wasn't a vicious guy, but he was the one that set up. Just ironic enough for this story, he's the one that set up all the shoots with the guys that wanted to be a pro wrestler. He would set them up with the guys in the back.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Well, that's who Stan faced, and he figured, I'm bigger than you, I'm stronger than you. And, Stan was just out of the Navy at that point. So he was lean and he was strong, but he didn't know what he was doing. Yeah.
A lot of you guys, you talk about Frazier in your book, talk about him, and it's hard to tell, when you're looking back at wrestling history, which is, I'm sure you have such a problem with. Anybody who writes about it has a real problem with it. You don't know what's a work and what is not, when guys are in character. They talked about how big and strong and physical Stan was.
Oh yeah.
Was that what your perception of him in the ring was, that he was just a big, strong, really physical guy?
He was very powerful.
Or was that these guys working to put him over?
Oh no, he was very powerful. He had a lot of raw natural power. He was like a guy like Ron Bass. Ron Bass had like farm boy strength, just a big, burly, strong guy. Didn't have a gym body, but Stan, underneath all that blubber, there was a lot of power. As he got older, he didn't have to try as hard. He just worked around his gimmicks. But I've heard stories of where he picked men up with his bare hands, just could hoist them up in a straight line.
But as far as
John, he could move pretty good for a big man too.
Yeah.
I mean, that tag match I had, as I was, going through it, sometimes you see something, you start recalling something. I mean, it was Mike Brown, myself, and Jack, and we are super heavyweights, and he was in this match, and he stayed with us. I mean, you could do some moving moves with him where you had to move around a little bit, and he was always right there for a drop kick or for anything you wanted to do. The guy could move in the ring for a big guy.
And this is before you left him stranded in Key West.
Well, yeah, he thanked me forever about that.
I bet he did. Key West is a fun place.
Well, and the thing that a lot of people have done over the years is they've lumped him in with Happy Humphrey or the McGuire.
Hey, Zach Calhoun.
Yeah, exactly. Frazier knew how to work.
Yeah,
he knew how to work.
That was my main question. Was he a good worker?
Yeah.
He knew how to work. He talked about in my book. I mean, he threw an excellent working punch. It looked, it was like a Jackie Fargo punch. It looked like it took your head off, but he barely grazed you. He knew how to work it. He could bump when he wanted to. He barely wanted to, but he knew how to work. He knew how to work safely as well. You wrestled against Happy Humphrey or the McGuire twins. Number one, you wondered if the guy would have a stroke in the ring during the match, but you also knew that they were so large they couldn't control their mass and they could break your arm or your leg without even trying. Frazier was a professional, and as time has gone by and people only remember him for when he was older and less physically capable, they've completely discounted him, which is not fair.
Yeah, but that's the part of the business, when he was big was when he was older.
Yeah, of course.
Same with Andre. Andre in 81 had that great match at the tennis center in Japan with Stan Hansen. It was freaking amazing. But Andre that you got in 86 had already had back surgery, and he was hurt. He was older, and that's how unfortunately people remember Andre. The casual fan. Same with Stan. By the time he got to the big stage where you have all this, publicity, this massive wedding, he was older and had been hurt a lot.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's like a lot of the younger fans will only remember Mae Young for her later years in wrestling.
Right. Right.
completely discounting everything that she did throughout her long and storied career, and how tough she was and how legitimate she was.
Like they only remember Mr. Briscoe for this podcast. They
One
forget
career,
he's a
right?
NBA champion, you know, and stuff. They forget all about it. He was the podcast guy with Bradshaw.
Yeah, you mentioned the McGuire twins. I saw them work several times, and it was almost, as a performer, as a wrestler, it was almost embarrassing, and at the same time, you had sympathy for them because they could not move at all. I mean,
No.
The one knee was their bump, and if you got them deal to one knee, you did something really spectacular to them.
Oh, of course.
Where Frazier, he could get up and down, he could move a little bit.
He could, of course, as he wrestled, as the years went by, less and less, but he was still a professional. Yeah. But there's a reason why.
Guys, I'm gonna have to go to the door 1 second. I'll be right back. So,
of course, yeah.
What was this happens every show. He just leaves. He's going to run around the yard looking at the yelling at the clouds and everything.
Oh yeah, that's all right.
He'll come back. What was the heat with Stan and Andre?
Well, Andre was very protective of his gimmick. He didn't want to be seen as big as somebody else. He wanted to be seen as the biggest wrestler in the business. Period. That was his appeal. Everywhere that he traveled, the world's largest wrestler, the biggest athlete in the world, and to have anyone challenge him was very upsetting, especially as he got older, and his status was in question. He wasn't the athlete he once was. He grew to resent Stan. He would tell anyone within earshot in the dressing room, "I don't like Uncle Elmer. I don't like Stan Frazier." He would disparage him at any opportunity, and Stan knew about it. He would openly talk about it. But
did Andre say why, or just I don't like him?
Well, Hillbilly Jim talked about it. He said that they just had very different personalities. There's that. But I think it's just being threatened. I'm sure you've seen it, the match between Andre and Ernie Ladd. I think it was from Madison Square Garden, where Ernie Ladd is basically crouching during the match to make Andre look larger. Stan tried so hard to get up in New York when he was younger. He could have done it. He absolutely could have had matches with Pedro. I mean, look at some of the workers from back then. I mean, Bugsy McGraw, Smasher Sloan, Bulldog Brower. He would have fit in fine.
Yeah.
At least as a short-term gimmick draw. Right. But
it's kind of the same like with Big John Studd. Andre didn't like him either. And
no.
Apparently the story was it was just because he was another giant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
well,
same thing with Homer.
And Studd used to go over the top rope. And Andre hated that because he considered that his spot. Don't you take my spot? And
stepping over the top rope, right?
Yeah, which is something that Stan did during the wedding. Andre was holding the ropes, and Stan walked right over the top rope in front of Andre, and you could see on Andre's face he's fuming, but he couldn't say anything.
Tell you this, we're skipping around over, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Tell us about the wedding, because this is one of the biggest things in wrestling history. Is the wedding.
It was a real wedding. It was an absolutely real wedding. I was
okay. Back us up there a little bit. It's real wedding. He had been with this lady for quite a while, right?
A couple of years, yeah. He had known her for a while. She was a waitress down in the Nashville area, and they started dating, and then they set a date, and they announced it, and they were going to be married, close to his hometown, and Vince heard that, and I'm sure he was asking for time off and like, oh wait, we could do something with this, and so it was changed into making it an angle as well as a real wedding,
and it became one of the biggest things in wrestling history.
It's crazy. Yeah,
the ratings on it were amazing. Everything about it was, people to this day remember this wedding, and there's
it was a Saturday night main event too, right?
Absolutely. It was the second Saturday night's main event. And whenever they show clips of Roddy Piper or Jesse Ventura, they always refer back to the Uncle Elmer match. It's always the wedding is always talked about. People, it's, back then we didn't have reality TV. And for someone to be married on national television was a huge deal. And they made it very obvious. They said, look, this has not happened since Tiny Tim got married in the late 1960s on the Johnny Carson show, which was true. And so they used that to help publicize this event. It was in the national news. It was on the AP wire. It was a huge deal.
And
so this is really the first WWE wedding that they really put on TV and really made it.
Well, they did the one on TNT prior to that, the Paul the Butcher Vachon, but it was on the USA Cable Network. So, but this was the first one on national broadcast TV.
Now, Elmer obviously got that to work. Did his wife?
He had to tell her what was going on. He traveled with his wife. When he was Uncle Elmer, he traveled with her. A lot of the boys wouldn't dream of doing that, but to him it was important. He was an older guy, and I think he wanted a sense of home and also someone to help take care of him because it was a little more difficult. So he told her what was going on. Didn't really swear her to secrecy per se, but just said, look, this may happen, that may happen, and you'll be fine. And it was kind of understood. The wedding didn't go off without a hitch. I mean, people
WWE wedding, no.
Yeah, people were throwing things at her, and amidst their vows, somebody took one of those little mini alcohol bottles and pegged her right in the face, and she held her composure. So did Stan. You could kind of see him in the footage, kind of glare over angrily, but he just, sucks it up. Don't sell it. Yeah, it was amazing.
Take us back a little bit. Like he's got trained now. He got stretched a little bit by the ref, as happens to most guys who get in the business. Don't have an amateur background.
Yeah,
and even some that do got to get stretched, unless you're a Brisco. But then he starts breaking the business. Where does he go first, and where does he go? Then he ends up as a convict. He ends up in Japan.
Yeah. Well, he was on the Gulf Coast, so they started using him around the Gulf Coast area. One of his early names was Stanley the Brute, and he was working around there just as a big giant guy. He was one of those guys you just bring in for the wow factor. You knew you could only do so much with him. He still needed to gain experience. One of his first real breaks was in Atlanta right around 1961, and they wanted to push him as one of the top stars, but he did not really get over. He didn't have the experience yet. He'd only been in the business about 2 years at that point. But they tried and they failed. But they pushed him up there, and then he just started traveling around and getting experience and changing his name constantly. If they wanted to change his name, he was Hoss Ed Younger. He was with the Daltons, and so he was kind of playing a cowboy gimmick. And anywhere they wanted to use him, he would change his name, he would change his persona, whatever you wanted. That led up to the Convict. I think Freddie Blassie was working in Atlanta when he first saw Frazier. And he thought, well, I could do something with this guy. So this was late 1960s, 1968. The WWA was still around, and they had Blassie there and Bobo Brazil, and they brought in the Convict as the big killer heel, and he was the first guy that Freddie Blassie ever managed. So that started.
What I find really, really intriguing about Stan too is a lot of those big guys like Haystacks and Humphrey and the McGuires. They'd come into your territory for a week or so.
Oh yeah,
they would never work it out an angle. But the promoters had such confidence in Stan that they would bring Stan in for a long-term angle with guys like you're saying there. And when they went out to California, he got with Freddie Blassie, which means you're going to be up on the top rank there.
Well, because he wasn't strictly
was that the Convict? Was that him?
That's him. Yep, that's him. In one of his many poorly made masks.
Yes. At one point, I saw it where was he painted at one point?
Oh, that was when he was Kamala #2. Yes. He in the early '80s, when Kamala was getting a little bit stale in the Memphis territory, they thought, oh, we'll put him in a tag team, and and they rolled out Stan Frazier as his tag team partner, wearing a loincloth and tribal paint, and he was Kamala #2.
You know, a white Ugandan giant doesn't really work. It
Yeah,
really doesn't.
He was the American giant as opposed to the Ugandan giant. So,
I loved all the wrestling references when Kamala Harris was running for president.
it wasn't amazing.
It was so good to see how so many of the wrestling guys who are so creative, you know, putting memes up about Kamala. It was just fantastic. It what makes you proud of these guys when they do stuff like that.
It's so over the top. You gotta laugh at it. Wrestling in general is so wonderful and ridiculous. You just got to embrace the madness, you know.
So what was the biggest thing that worked for him in, say, in the 60s, when he was in the 60s? Where was he? Was it the Convict that was the most successful thing that he?
Well, that's when he became really a national star. The Convict got ink all over the national publications. He had a big run down there in Southern California. And then he took it back to the Gulf Coast. If you can imagine this, 68, 69, he had matches with Dr. Jerry Graham, who was by that point enormous. There's not much these two guys could do together, but Jerry Graham was still a draw despite the fact that he was, well, sort of dipping into his eccentricities more and more. You know?
Stop it. Jerry Graham, crazy.
Oh, he was over the top, but that led to Stan getting a tour of Japan in 1970, which is huge. I mean, that was at the time they only took the cream of the crop in Japan. He was on tour with Don Leo Jonathan, Nelson Royal, Dutch Savage. He was managed by Pampiro Firpo, because Blassie didn't go on that tour, but Blassie gave the endorsement. Blassie was so over in Japan, so by proxy, the Convict was over, and he was a huge sensation in Japan, huge.
And that was before the split, because it was 74 was a split with Inoki and Baba, right?
So this was 70,
That was when it was just Ricky Dozen's place, right, basically. So that was huge to be going over there working for that group.
Oh yeah, he wrestled Baba, Inoki, and Sakaguchi. Yeah, and of course he lost to all of them, as every gaijin does.
We all did. We all
quit it. An American go to Japan, have to put over the local boys. No, that doesn't happen.
But he got an action figure. There was a clothing line. There was a comic books and a cartoon series.
The clothing line. Now I got to stop you there. Tell us a little bit about the clothing line.
It just used the iconography of the Convict on there. Oh, you didn't end up looking like Stan Frazier. Heaven forbid. No, it was the iconography of the mask. So he was really, really over. The thing is, Stan was just happy being the happy-go-lucky country boy. He didn't commit completely to the character. So while he looked mean and scary, he was still wrestling as Plowboy Frazier. So
did I got a question throwback here? Did that unusual? You're jumping back and forth on this podcast, but did his marriage? Did he stay married for a long time?
Oh well, he was married twice. Yeah,
well,
so
to the lady that he married on TV.
They were together for a few years, but that ended because it's some of the guys, they're a little hard to live with, especially when you're a worker and a con man like Stan Frazier. So yeah, they ended their marriage ended. They separated. Yeah.
You mentioned, and anybody that I watched a bunch of interviews people did, getting ready for this, and plus your book that is just absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Everybody talks about him being a con man. Everybody talks about Frazier, talks about him being a freaking con man.
Oh yeah,
they all loved him. I mean, so it's like, okay, I know he's selling fake watches. I know he's full of shit. He's a good dude. It's amazing that everybody said basically the same thing. Oh, he's a con man. Great guy.
Yeah.
That's the reason I bought the watch from him. I knew what I was buying. I knew who I was buying it from, but it's still I had to have one.
So he was just like a carny dude 100% of the time, right?
Absolutely. With his friends, with his family, with everybody. He couldn't stop being what he was. He was just like a con man machine, but not malicious. I think that's the big thing. He was likable, not malicious. And I think, some of the guys in wrestling, they'll tear your heart out and not think twice about it. Stan, he had his own moral code. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. He had. Yeah. What other else did he do besides make up his bio, which a lot of guys did, and sell fake Rolexes, which a lot of guys did.
Well, yeah, I mean, he had several clothing stores. He throughout the 1970s into the 80s, he sold shoes, he sold clothing, he sold cars. He did everything.
Were the shoes and clothing knockoffs?
Oh,
clothing?
Probably. Everybody wondered what they were getting when they were buying stuff from him. But he ran a promotion down in Union City, Tennessee, and he rented out the building, and he had shoes surrounding the ring, so you could buy shoes before and after the matches.
No, wow, that's awesome.
He double dipped, so yeah. And
so he's selling the shoes at a wrestling event.
Yes, yeah.
You come down there and go, hey, we got 5 matches today, a bunch of big main events. We also got Nike sneakers on sale.
It's the craziest thing in the world. Yeah, and also too, Percy Pringle, Paul Bearer, whatever you want to call him. When he was young, he said that Stan Frazier would come to an empty section of the bleachers, put all the shoes up there, and you could buy them from a famous wrestler, and it was. It's like having a gimmick table nowadays, but that's what they did. Yeah.
It just like you're going to a wrestling event, you're not really thinking about buying shoes.
Oh yeah.
Did he sell many shoes?
He made a lot of money. Yeah, he did. He did. He sold a lot of shoes, a lot of clothing. He had several stores. I mean, going on for a lot of years. So he
actual brick and mortar stores. He
absolutely.
Had?
Okay, now a big question here: did he use other people's money to get the store?
Oh, most likely, yeah.
That's what you would think. This guy would because this guy apparently could talk anybody into anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
A big, lovable guy could sell anything to anybody, and it just seems like if you open up a clothing store, he's going to make sure he's not going to lose money and use somebody else's money to open it up, and no matter what happens, he's okay.
Well, you had a guaranteed selling point. You had Frazier. He would come in there and, hey, come in Saturday, free hot dogs, get an autographed picture of Tiny Frazier, and there was always a draw there. It was unique. It was a hook. And he knew it. And he always had a trunk full of stuff everywhere he traveled. He had a Ford LTD that he liked to drive around. So in the trunk, he had photos, he had clothing. So he'd be having dinner with somebody and someone would come up and ask for an autograph. He'd say, I can give you an autograph, but I've got a pair of shoes that would look great on you.
That is so good.
Yeah, that's what they did back then. No, but he was it's part of his charisma, and he could do it. He could sell it to anyone. Even Vince McMahon, the guy who told him to stop selling things, bought a watch from him.
Oh, he bought the watch.
He bought a watch. Yeah.
That is just awesome.
Well, we all did.
Oh yeah, I did too. I didn't buy one from him, but I bought a fake Rolex. Yeah, and I knew it was.
Yeah. No, but I wish we had more characters like that in the business nowadays, because the Stan Frazier type of character, the Frank Spaceman Hickey type character, they don't exist anymore. No. They don't exist anymore.
I wish we had a character in the business.
Yeah, that's right. Just a character.
But when Stan was Uncle Elmer, they leaned heavy into the characters. George the Animal Steel, Junkyard Dog. These guys didn't put on clinics, but they were over. They connected with the fans in a very unique way that people don't do anymore. And their gimmick, it was an organic thing. It wasn't like they were putting on a character and playing it because the scriptwriter told them to. It was something that emanated from within. And that's why Uncle Elmer got over. You believed it. Hillbilly Jim got over because you knew he was that sweet, lovable country boy. There was nothing inauthentic about him at all. And people believed in him. They still do.
There's a great country song that talks about a kid throwing a ball up. He's pretending to be the greatest hitter of all time. He's going to hit a home run in the World Series, and he misses the ball and strikes himself out. And at the end of the song, he said, "I didn't realize I was the greatest pitcher of all time." And
Yeah.
that's what Stan seems to me. He just seems
Yeah.
like he gets stuck in a ditch. Go, oh, cool, it's a nice afternoon. He just seems like a happy guy, no matter what happens to
Yeah.
him. From everything that you write about in your book, he just seemed like a dude that you couldn't upset him. He was just happy all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically it. And he had his fingers in different pots. If one thing didn't work out, this would work out. And he always had some kind of scheme going, but he genuinely enjoyed life. He enjoyed people. And again, you could feel that from his character. And when he came into a wrestling arena, you sensed that warmth and that depth. I miss that kind of thing. It's just
let's move over to his talking or his cooking his cooking ability.
Oh yes.
There were some secret ingredients going on there.
Oh yeah.
Did he have what was Jerry Jarrett's potato salad or recipe?
Oh yeah. Well, so
that's where Jarrett got it from, probably.
Well, Jerry Jarrett was very specific. The two of them were very tight, and they would go fishing on Old Hickory Lake, and he would be out there with Stan all day long. They'd catch the fish, and they'd just sit and talk all day, and then they would go back, and Stan would prepare the fish. He would clean them, he would gut them, and then he'd cook them, and they would just sit there and they'd eat fish and drink cold beer, and Stan was a cook in the Merchant Marines, so he knew what he was doing. Guy that big who eats as much as he does, you better know how to provide for yourself.
Yeah, really.
But no,
imagine being a cook and Merchant Marines. You're going to know every recipe.
Oh yeah, you had to be resourceful, and but Stan loved to cook, and it was I couldn't talk about Stan and his life without mentioning the food element, because I mean clearly he loved to eat too much, but it's the best way to describe his character. When you cook these recipes, you remember him, you think of him, and it's sort of it's just a unique way to get to the heart of who he was.
Hillbilly Jim, he worked with Hillbilly and had a cousin there as well. Three huge guys. He talks about him holding Vince up for the Saturday night's main event.
Yeah,
I heard Hillbilly. He's a good friend of me and Mr. Brisco also.
Yes.
What is Stan's side of that story as far as what happened with him and Vince, and the reason that he was alleged to have held him up for more money?
Well, I mean, Stan would have a different way of explaining it, but I'll explain it the way I see it. He knew that his big run was coming to an end. His body was falling apart. You could see it on the TV matches. At WrestleMania, he had his ankle taped up. He was at WrestleMania 2 against Adrian Adonis. He looked horrible out there. He fell over, and when he was throwing a punch, and he just lost his balance. He knew the end was coming, and he just saw a way for him to make more money on his way out. And obviously that didn't work out for him.
So is that what happened? Was he held up Vince for more money?
Yeah, that was it. So he was already announced to be against King Kong Bundy at Saturday night's main event, and all the publicity was out there. He had to be there. And so he thought, well, if they need me that badly, they'll pay for it. Hillbilly Jim was wrestling, I want to say Bakersfield. And I think it was Jay Strongbow. He said, Elmer's done it again. And like, oh, okay, what's going on now? It's like, he no-showed. We need you to replace him. So they hired a Learjet to take him, and only him, to the venue. I'm blanking on where it was, but it was for Saturday night's main event.
I think it was either Boston or Providence.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'd have to look at the.
I just watched the video with Hillbilly Jim talking about it.
You did? Okay, yeah. Okay, there you go. So they flew him in, and when he landed, of course, Frazier kind of knew that his scam wasn't going to work, so he just kind of went and to the arena. When Jim landed, they said, "Okay, we're going to take you back to the hotel." Elmer showed up, and oh boy, no, there's going to be hell to pay. That was basically his last WWF match.
Yeah.
And they had Bundy squash him out there. It wasn't a total squash, but he beat him. Yeah, that was kind of it. Stan just knew, like, hey, this is the end of the run for me.
And he wanted one last payday, and
one last payday. Yeah, he was having trouble getting through airports. His, as big as he was, he had to fit in Coach most of the time. If you can imagine that, he and his wife and Coach.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when, being friends with Bill Moody, when he was at his heaviest, he needed 2 first-class seats.
Yeah.
In order to fit into an airplane, and here was Frazier squeezing into Coach, as big as he was. And
well, what was Stan's max weight at that time? Do you?
The biggest he ever was, as I know it, was about 460 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. But he, if things were different, if they didn't have the travel schedule that they did back then, and they made special accommodations for him, his run could have been extended out a little bit further, despite his age. But
and Kurt, as you know, doing your research there, back in that Plowboy's days or Stan's days, the schedule was brutal. I mean, there were 50, 20, 30, 40 nights in a row where you had no time at all.
Absolutely. And for a guy that big who is older,
big guys, as Jerry will say and attest to, I saw some of them traveling, and it was brutal. I mean, brutal. It was horrible. They didn't fit in seats. It was just they did everything they could to accommodate them, but there's only so much you can do when you're that size.
I remember this was, let's say 1986. I was living up in the Bay Area, and I always ate at this one hotel. It happened to be at the hotel that all the boys stayed at, and it was called the AmFac Hotel by the San Francisco airport. And I happened to be traveling to see family up in Seattle, and I saw what I thought was a very large, unhappy woman sitting next to me. Looked miserable. Turned out, as I was leaving the plane, it was Adrian Adonis, who was in. He looked so unhappy. Adrian at the time was well over 300 pounds, and he was in a middle seat in Coach, squeezed right behind me. He looked like he had no light in him, no future, and I suspect for a lot of the boys it was like that.
If you're in the middle seat at that side, you got no future. That's travel. Make sure he gets a center seat. I mean,
And some idiot beside you is going to try to fight you over the armrest. You're like, dude, right now it's not the time. I promise you, today's not the day.
So I try to imagine now that was a guy who was over 300 pounds and maybe 6 foot tall, but Frazier add on an extra foot and an extra 150 pounds. And how do you do that? And
and also just everything that comes with it. You got to get to the car, you got to pick up a rent a car at the airport, you got to get through security, which wasn't as bad as, obviously after 9/11, but still a lot of walking, a lot of toting your bags with you. I mean, it's just travel when you're a big guy. It's not fun.
It's a nightmare. And, Joyce was there with him and she tried to help out, but she was a small woman. When you got, a man that big, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And he was never given any special provisions. Andre, obviously, he was the golden goose. They loved him. They gave him special vehicles to travel in and or at least they put him in first class. Stan didn't get any of that, despite the fact that they were really the same size, and it's a miracle he lasted as long as he did, to be honest.
It is.
What was the watermelon prank that he did?
Oh, well, he did a lot of watermelon things, but so he loved watermelons. He loved them, and
of course he did. He's from Mississippi.
He's a Southern boy. Well, all the Southern boys.
All Southern boys love watermelon. I can tell you, my dad every day during the summer would have a watermelon. Yeah, all Southern boys love watermelon.
Well, he would. again, like we talk about this in my book. Whenever he traveled, he would find the biggest watermelons he could find. He would take them to the hotel room, put them in the bathtub, fill them full of ice, and then after the matches, he would just sit
You're kidding me.
and eat all night long. You know,
He would have a bathtub full of watermelons?
yes.
His room would be popular,
Yeah,
John.
there you go. Yeah.
And then he'd sit around all night and eat watermelon all night.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Drink his sweet tea and eat watermelon. Boy, that's his. And being a diabetic, that wasn't the smartest thing in the world. Yeah, no, but he was on TV, and this would have been 1976, I guess, Memphis TV, and it was Jerry Lawler. He was tag team partners with Plowboy at the time, and he brought out almost like a machete and a giant watermelon, and Jerry Lawler kept prodding Dave Brown, like, "Oh, you better eat this watermelon. This is really important to him. Don't upset him." And he was. Dave Brown was never really let in to the business. He was just he was a commentator, so he was apparently really afraid of Stan, and he wasn't about to say no to eating the watermelon, you know, on television. So there was Stan whacking away at this thing with a machete. Here, eat this. Like, okay. So yeah, he was forced to eat it on TV. No, but Stan, that was one of the things. He always sat and grazed on a watermelon, and yeah, it's
an announcer that's not smartened up gets ribbed on television. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, we have announcers that were smartened up that got ribbed on.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You know, you gotta grin and bear it in that position. You know
what you were a big fan of Stan,
you know,
and then you write this book. Is there anything you found out about him that surprised you, or anything that you looked at and thought, "Oh, that's pretty cool"? Didn't know that.
Well, I mean, I heard so many rumors over the years. I guess that's it. It's I always thought that he was lying, but this, you know, he mentioned all these movies he was in. He used to say that, "Oh, I was on the Johnny Carson show," and it's like, well, that's all a lie. I think it's just the depth of the person, the depth of how much people loved him and how important he was to certain regions. People really connected with him. They saw themselves in Stan. Stan looked just like they did. He talked like they did. You know, people would call each other neighbor as a term of endearment, and he called everyone neighbor, and that was just his friendly way of communicating. But it meant something to him. Yeah, he was truly beloved. I guess the surprising thing to me is, you know, and which I want other people to know about. He was more than Uncle Elmer. He was more than just this small run, and you know, in the WWF, he was more than just a gimmick. He was an interesting guy who basically did all the things that he wanted to do in life, to the best of his ability. But he, you know, he didn't look at his size or his locale or anything as a limitation. He's like, well, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it my own way, any way I can. So,
did Stan have any kids with either wife?
Never had a kid. Never had a kid.
So
yeah.
How was he looked up? I mean, upon retirement. I mean, was he still like a comment and when he went home, or what
he basically wrestled until a year before he died.
Wow.
Yeah, he still was promoting. He still would wrestle to the best of his ability. I mean, you know, in his early 50s, you know, still doing that. Towards the end, most of the time he teamed with Cousin Junior, who was Lanny Keene. And Lanny Keene was the workhorse, and Stan would come in and he'd throw a few punches and drop the leg, and that was kind of it. But that's all he had to do. That's all people wanted from him. You just see the visual of this giant man, and you see the guy in the overalls, and brings back a lot of your memories of maybe you grew up with him in the territories or his Uncle Elmer. And that's all that really mattered. But finally, his health got to a point where they said, "You're gonna die if you do this." And so he quit. He still made appearances and autographs and all that. But of course, it was different in the the early 90s when he passed away. They didn't have fan fests. Things
Right.
were far less organized.
That's what I tell people all the time. You know, we didn't have anything like what we have now, where these
No,
guys can make money, and you know they certainly didn't have podcasts or didn't have any of this stuff, autograph sessions, nothing.
no. And you know, if he was still alive to this day, I mean, imagine the stories that he would have had, and you know. But you
Imagine the
got to
stories
wonder.
he'd have made up.
Oh yeah, but you got to
Yeah.
wonder too. There's some guys that lived and died by kayfabe, and you know, I was really close with Cowboy Bob Kelly. He wouldn't break kayfabe for anyone because he just wanted that image of the way things were to live on. You know, Johnny Walker was the same way. He wouldn't. And you know, I knew Penny Banner very well, and you know, and she wanted me to buy her book so badly, but I knew it was all written in kayfabe. But it's like, Penny, I know you. I'm never going to read this book, but you know, I bought it feeling bad for her, you know. But it's just, you know, I just wish that certain people were still around to have their voice be heard, and I wish those that were here at the time were willing to rise above their old notions to continue their legacy.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
Stan-
I really appreciate you putting this book out because speaking of legacy, you know, he's much more than Uncle Elmer. That's the wedding night. I mean,
Yeah.
he was so diversified. He was a big a con man as he was, and I say that lovingly.
Yes.
He was loved in the dressing room. I mean, this guy, he did. And through your research, did you find any issues where he had with anybody? I mean, was he ever get in trouble or anything?
Oh, he got in trouble here and there for sure. Well, I got a, you know, the convict thing is kind of a shoot, you know. There's a photo that I have in there. He was really young, but it's photographic proof. Charlie Smith went to visit the referee, Charlie Smith from the Gulf Coast area.
I knew Charlie well, yeah.
He was a sweetheart, and right during the pandemic, he said, "Hey, Kurt, I'm going to send you a photo." I said, "All right." So he said, "You're going to like it." And so I got it. I was like, what the heck? It was Charlie standing next to Stan Frazier, probably 1959, 1960, in a prison yard in somewhere probably in Mississippi. And Charlie didn't elaborate on what it was, but he said, "I went to visit my brother. And my brother was arrested for something. And as he was signing the paperwork to go in, the fella at the counter said, "Oh, there's your brother's in there with a wrestler. You ever heard of Stan Frazier?" And so, yeah, Charlie thought maybe it was stolen goods that he was arrested for, but yeah,
Rolexes, yeah,
yeah, oh yeah. But he pulled some schemes over the years, and a lot of people did, but he was so obvious about it, you know, and he couldn't hide, you know. He couldn't run away, so he was a little easier to peg. But yeah, he had his detractors, and I've heard people say things about him over the years that weren't very complimentary. That some of it's just speculation, so I didn't really dwell on it too much in my book. All I could do is stick with what I know and what I can glean from what's out there.
What was some of the negative stuff? You don't have to say what it was, but
well, I mean, consider where he's from, you know, and the attitudes, you know, deep in the Gulf Coast area, and you know, he was the bodyguard for George Wallace for a while.
Was he?
Really?
Yeah, and George Wallace, well, he was very he had his agenda, and
Yes, he did.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and so a lot of people figured that Frazier was in league with him in that mindset. Very well could have been, but you know, in Alabama, George Wallace was loved. He was loved.
Oh yeah,
and
he was a kid. He was Kennedy loved in Alabama.
Absolutely, yeah. And but they maintained their friendship. Stan was not there the day that George Wallace was shot. But most of the time he was there, you know, protecting him. Who's going to mess with George Wallace when Stan Frazier's standing there? I mean, for crying out loud. But there's a photo that I have in my book, and this was after George Wallace had been shot, and he was in a wheelchair. And there's Stan Frazier with Armand Hussein. So if Stan was really racist, he wouldn't be taking a photo standing next to Armand Hussein. But even, you know, Coco Ware he was given the opportunity to break in the business through Stan Frazier. And Stan promoted in an area that was primarily black. So if he really was as racist as some people claim he was, he wouldn't have ingratiated himself to the community or opened the doors for anyone in the way that he did.
Was a racist
or sold shoes.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Was the racist claims because, and sometimes, you're either conscripted or you get a job and, you're protecting a guy that you may or may not agree with,
Yes.
as far as George Wallace. Was that the basis of the racist claims and where he was from, the Deep South? And, Alabama was a very racist.
Some people have said that he was a member of the KKK. That's what I've heard. But again, I found no evidence of this.
Yeah.
But I heard people over the years say, oh, Stan Frazier said he'd never work with a black man, either in the ring, as an opponent or as a tag team partner. But you can look at his career. Well, he teamed with Kamala. He wrestled Coco Ware countless times. He teamed with a lot of people of different races. So sometimes they say the truth lies somewhere in between, right? So who's to say? Who's to say?
Right.
But it was a different world. It was a different time period. And sometimes you did what you had to just to get by.
The problem with any claim like that is so onerous, like racist, once you say that, it always sticks with you, whether it's legit or not.
Of course.
Because it's such a bad claim that somebody says, oh, they're a racist. Well, sometimes people say that flippantly, which I hate because that sticks with somebody, brands somebody for the rest of their life to a certain people. Whether it's legit or not,
absolutely.
It's just people can say anything they want, and people do, unfortunately. Was he in on as far as like making up his own stuff, the stuff he would sell, the fake Rolexes? Did he like he made up playing football? He made up some other. He made up the Johnny Carson show. Was that him? Just I've been around a lot of guys who love to make stuff up.
Oh yeah,
they have fun making shit up.
That's it.
Was that him?
Or that was all him. That was all him.
He just enjoyed telling a good story, and the truth is not going to impact that story, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, for years, I heard people saying that, that famous footage of Bigfoot from the late 1960s in the Pacific Northwest, that's actually Stan Frazier in an ape suit.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah, I heard that.
That is fantastic.
I heard that from many sources. But through my research, I found out the source of the information was Stan Frazier himself. So
no, that's the best part of. Oh my God, that's great. So he put out that he was the fake Bigfoot.
Of course, yeah. And why not? It's it's conceivable.
Of course it is. Yeah. He's almost 7 foot tall. He's as big as Bigfoot. Yeah, it is conceivable.
The way he lumbers, I've watched that footage countless times, thinking to myself, is that Stan? The way he walked, it could have been him, but
wow.
It's the fact that he put that out makes me love him.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, but it's all of these things, all of these tall tales. You got a guy. I mean, I think of like Don Fargo. Don Fargo was such an amazing character. Like, and he could talk about so many things, and he was so colorful. And years after he stopped wrestling, I mean, you just wanted to be around this guy to absorb his stories and his aura, and he was just so ridiculous. And you gotta love it. And back then you could do such things, and you could lie and kind of get people to believe it. And Don Fargo knew how to sell himself. Frazier knew how to sell himself. And you get caught up in the madness, and it's just, there's always going to be that shred of doubt, but have fun with it.
The guy that embodies this does a podcast is Dutch Mantel.
Oh, he's great.
And I love Dutch. Oh my God. Yes. He's the best storyteller ever. And Dutch will tell you, he goes, I can't remember if this is the truth or not, but I'm going to tell you this. And he'll just start telling the story. And it's the greatest story ever. And I'm not saying he makes
and you don't care if it's the truth.
I could care less. I travel with him for a year or two. And sometimes I go, Dutch, make up a story. And literally, he would go down the road. He just makes something up. He's one of the most entertaining guys I've ever been around in my life. He is so fun. He's a good dude too. But that reminds me of guys like Plowboy Frazier. I mean, these guys are very rare and they're just fun to be around.
Well, it's like fairy tales. They make life more interesting. They had oh gosh, it was in like the like let's say the 1920s. There were the little girls that supposedly took pictures of fairies and they caught it on camera, and a lot of people believed it. And for many years they just kind of kept tight lip about it, but finally when they were in their 80s they said, okay, well, we did paper cutouts and all of this, but it was the dream that fairies are real that made it special. And to this day people say, well, I know it's not supposed to be real, but I'd rather dream a little bit. And guys like Frazier, it's just the silliness and the big stories and the tall tales that made life more colorful. And I wish more people were willing to go down that path. Older people, yeah, of course, none of you are older, but as you go to get older, I do it too. I'm just north of 25, and you look back on your life and the stories get more colorful and more exciting, and you embellish just a little bit more. And sometimes people know that you're kind of stretching the truth a bit, but they love it and they want to hear those stories. It's part and parcel of who you are, and that's what it was about Frazier. And yeah, you can look on the internet and dispel all of that stuff, but
yeah,
just enjoy the ride.
When you're sitting in the dressing room before we had the internet, before we had cell phones, guys just sat around and told stories.
Of course.
And they would embellish the stories, and we know they're embellishing the stories. We didn't care. Nobody cared. Yeah. All you want to do is be entertained. We got several hours to kill. We don't have a phone and Twitter and all this crap. Tell us something that's entertaining. And somebody tell a story, and we guys would just listen to it. Sometimes they get heckled if the story wasn't any good, but if it was good, everybody just sit there and listen to it. No one cared if it was true or not.
Absolutely. And of course, just the fact that you're meeting these amazing people who accomplish so much.
And well, the big question I have is, did you have overalls before you wrote the book? I mean, are those actually your overalls, or?
Well, here's what a mark I am. So, Percy Pringle, Paul Bear, I'll call him Bill going forward. Bill Moody. He grew up with Tiny Frazier as one of his hometown heroes. He loved him, and it was Tiny Frazier who brought us together. I was running a website for many years, and he contacted me, and then I did, Bill's website as well. But we became really, really good friends. So when I first went down to Mobile to visit him, he said, "Oh, it's going to be our Tiny Frazier Day. We're going to have Tiny Frazier Day." And so we went down to visit him in Biloxi, where he's buried, and we went to an Army Navy surplus store in Pascagoula, where Tiny lived. And I got several pairs of overalls, and so I still have them to this day. So yes, I got those many years ago. But we used to go out there and visit his grave every time I'd go out and visit Bill, and everybody would talk about Tiny Frazier, and they remembered him warmly and fondly. And but the thing that was frustrating to me is they didn't want to tell me everything, because they said, well, we know you have an image of him, and we don't want to shatter that. I said, I know everything already. Come on. But it was, they were kind of a tight-lipped group about certain facts, and that was hard. So
what's on his
that Deep South reunion is supposed to be just a fantastic storytelling fest.
The Gulf Coast Wrestlers reunion was wonderful. I went to that for many years, and I mean, it's over now. But it was, I used to be on the board of Cauliflower Alley Club, and I just went to their recent event, and it's different. You had to be allowed into this event. It was very private, and everybody who came in had their guard down, and you could talk to people in a way that you couldn't in any other arena. And it was such an honor to me to be part of that. But that being said, they didn't tell me anything about Tiny Frazier that I didn't already know.
What's on his tombstone? Is it just Stan Frazier? Any of his gimmick names on it?
It's interesting. When I first went to his grave, I noticed that his name was misspelled.
Really?
And that galled me. And I went to the office and I said, look, that's not how this guy's name is spelled. And the clerk that was there went in the database and said, oh, you're right. We can correct this. They'll do that. No problem. And I said, well, since you're at it, everybody around here and nationally knew him as Plowboy. So could you please put Plowboy on his tombstone? And they did it. They did it.
Wow.
So that's my permanent mark of Stan Frazier. His family didn't even know that I did that. His niece reached out to me about 3 weeks ago and said, do you know who did this? This happened about 20 years ago. Do you have any clue? And I said, well, it was me. the guy who wrote the book. So to me, that was just a small way of honoring him. I just felt, and my father was a merchant marine too, like Stan was. So it just kind of galled me that they would have his name misspelled, and it would linger as long as it did. So the fact that I could right that wrong for him was kind of a special deal.
Has the family have they reached out to you about the book?
Not so much, and I don't know why. The niece reached out to me, and she bought the book blindly on Amazon. Didn't know that anyone had any desire to do a book on her uncle. But she had a few questions for me, and I haven't heard back from her yet. I hope I do. I was very close with Joyce. Joyce was a really good friend. That's Stan's wife. She passed away in 2004. And I had a lot of photos from her and everything. And then she died unexpectedly. And that her whole family was in just shock, and I lost contact with them. And so I'm hoping that this will open the avenues to talk to the family. I don't know if he left behind any bad blood. I really don't. I have no clue. I can only speculate. But I would love to have an audience with them and at least a conversation with them, because I did this book out of love and respect, and I wasn't trying to expose any family secrets or do anything hurtful. I just wanted him to be remembered. That was the big thing. I wanted him to be remembered.
Yeah. You yourself, a wrestler, how long did you wrestle? Where all did you wrestle?
I worked up in Northern California, a group called All Pro Wrestling. If you ever saw Beyond the Mat, we were the independent promotion that they focused on. You can actually see me in the movie very briefly. I was a cameraman at the time. And I used to brag like, oh, I have more screen time than Greg Valentine. But yeah, it's so I was there. I worked with Roland Alexander, and we had Crash Holly came from our group, and Spike Dudley. So yeah, I was there when they filmed the sequence, the tryouts, and everything. So they realized early on that I was more of a talker than a worker, because I know I'm not an athlete, but I can speak. So that's what I was being trained for, to be a manager. Yeah. And I never liked the gimmick that they gave me, so we won't talk further about it. But years passed, and when I became friends with
no, you got to tell us, what was the worst gimmick that they presented to you?
They wanted me to be a nerd manager, So
no.
Yeah, can you believe it? Yeah. Well, so at the time, the Dudleys were a big deal, and so anybody that was a nerd would wear overalls cut off at the knee, like Stan Frazier. So they said, "Oh, we're going to pull a rib on you, and you're going to wear overalls cut off at the knee." And I thought, well, I would have done that anyway. That's what Stan Frazier did. So, but no, years passed, and then I was riding on a car trip with the two Pringles. So it was Marcel Pringle, marvelous Marcel Pringle, and Percy Pringle, Bill Moody. And they said, well, you're part of our family now, so we need to christen you with a name. And I said, well, how about I'm your cousin from California, your cousin Elmer. So Cousin Elmer Pringle became my gimmick. So happy to take it. But I realized early on that I was better working behind the scenes. So I did websites, and I worked with the Cauliflower Alley Club for many, many years. I did their website. I was on the board of directors and helped organize those events and so forth. But we all find our place in the business. You don't all have to be in the ring. You don't always have to be a focal point. You can still be happy with what you get. And yeah, I'm better off not beating up my body.
And for those listening, what are you doing now? And do you have any more books planned?
Well, yeah, I work. I work at Disneyland, as we talked about, and I am working on another book. It's not wrestling related, although I do have a few that have reached out to me and were interested in me working with them. I'm always a champion for the underdogs, so I'm probably going to have one with a guy who is more like a local star or an independent star. That's what appeals to me most, and get out the stories that people haven't heard yet. I mean, how many Ric Flair stories can you hear, or Mick Foley stories? As wonderful as they are, we all know them, the major stories. But a Stan Frazier story, if I didn't tell it, no one would hear it. So I want these unheard stories to be told. And, thankfully we have people like Scott. There you go. We have people like Scott Teal out there and beating the drum and Dan Murphy and so many great writers. I mean, there's that Gorilla Monsoon book coming out now, Brian Solomon. It's just, the history is alive and there's an interest for it. There's a spark there. And the further we get away from the territories, it takes on a mythical quality to the young people. And I think they want to know about it and how it works.
And that's really good to hear that the younger people want to hear about it. And you're right, the territorial days, I mean, the characters, you had to be a character to survive back in those days. And if you weren't, you just got passed by. And so, these young guys today and the young fans, I'm really happy to hear you say that the young fans want to know more about the character-driven territory days.
Well, I used to see it when I'd be out with Cowboy Bob Kelly. Just your average person would look at him in awe, like he was like he was a god. Even the younger people, they might not have known who he was or even watched him, but they knew he was someone important. And then they saw how people reacted around him, and they wanted to know more about him. And yeah, the people from your generation and the generations previously, there was a particular gravitas that it still lingers. And yeah,
John and I talk about this often. I mean, he came along right at the end of the territorial days, so he got a taste of it, growing up in Dallas, and just the character-driven people that was involved in our business. And he and I both really, I mean, when we're telling stories, it usually revolves around somebody from the old territorial days.
Oh yeah. So John, I didn't ask you yet. Did you happen to see Stan Frazier when he wrestled down there in Dallas? Percy Pringle brought him in.
I did. Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the TV I got was the Dallas TV. So that's the only wrestling TV I got when I was growing up. Through high school. We got a little bit of the funks at times for some reason, but all we got was, I didn't get, later, you got the national stuff when WB came on in Saturday mornings and stuff. But for most of my life, I just got the KTVT Channel 11 wrestling out of Dallas.
Yeah, you might have seen the match where he was in the ring with who ended up becoming the Undertaker, which is hard to believe that they're just so far apart. But yet there was that one brief moment where they actually were in the ring with one another. Yeah,
I was. It's pretty cool to see some of those stuff. I was telling somebody the other day, I just being in the ring with Jeep Swenson. You just sometimes you just pass through and you run through guys and. You go, I was in the ring with him. People are like, really? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I should congratulate you or say I'm sorry.
He was the nicest guy. I like Jeep and Jeep liked me.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, because he had my God, he was a big man.
Oh,
yeah. He was just the nicest guy. It couldn't work a lick, but just a nice guy.
Oh, visually impressive. Well, like Frazier. I mean, I remember seeing him for the first time and like, oh my gosh, I've never seen a human being like that. Or like the Warlord, the first time I ever saw him, I couldn't even wrap my brain around it. It didn't seem real.
I was training up in Hamill, Minnesota with Brad Reingans when I saw the Warlord at the gym. That's the everybody worked out at. And he had 320 on the bar, which is kind of unusual because you had 345s and a 2.5. And I thought that's really meticulous to have that weight on there. That's being that you're very serious when you do that stuff. And
Wow.
he picked it up and walked back with it. And I thought, what is he doing? He bent over and started doing bent rows with it, and then picked it back up, walked back, set it back. I go, I may be getting in the wrong business.
Yeah.
Because I can't do that without a surgery.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He was
And-
huge. I mean, huge.
Absolutely.
When he was at his peak.
Absolutely, yeah. Those are the guys who have, you just immediately you look at them and just wow, you're just floored.
They were going to do a tiger match. They may have done, I can't remember if they did or not, with Jeep Swenson. He had a bunch of exotic animals. They're going to put tigers around the ring and, like lumberjacks and stuff.
Oh.
And he had a black panther that he brought to the ring, and he got scared because of the crowd. And as he's holding its neck, it bit him right here, and it bit all the way through his hand, all the way through his hand. And that big tough bastard he finished the promo, carried it back. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh.
Jeep, whatever you want to do, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, we talked about, I mentioned a little bit about guys who had that like immediacy, when like that you look at them and you're just floored. They just walk out and just takes your breath away. Frazier was that way. Jeep Swenson was that way. But they're also exposed nowadays. It doesn't have the impact that it once did. I know they tried with Omos to get him over big time, but I saw him live in an arena and people really reacted to him. It's just
massive. I mean,
oh my gosh.
I was down in Mexico City when he did that little spot with the Micro Man, the mini.
Yeah.
Literally a 4-foot difference. Micro Man is 3'3".
Oh, wow.
Almost, I don't know if he is or not, but he may be 7'3", so 4-foot difference.
Yeah.
It did like 200 million social media views. I mean, it's just seeing almost in anywhere is just shocking how big he is. And thankfully, he's as nice as he is big. He's a really good man, but he is massive.
Yeah, he is. And in the old days, in the territorial system, if he was a traveling giant, he would have gotten over and had a huge career. But nowadays, people nitpick everyone's performance, and it's kind of hard to get away with that. Frazier never would have been able to do anything that we do.
A lot of us during that era would be able to do that.
Of course.
That's right. Well,
no, but we're really lucky that we were privy to that world, and
yeah, exactly.
We know
that's why we're so thankful for you to bring back to everybody's memory on guys like Stan Frazier.
Thank you. It was my honor. I knew if I didn't do it, no one else in the world would. So might as well, bite the bullet and do it. And it was a passion project. And to this day, people won't even acknowledge it. They say, "Oh, that stupid wrestler," and they won't think twice. But I think those who actually take the time to take a look at it and see what I did, they can gain a certain level of appreciation for his superlatives, not his negatives. I don't try to paint him as being anything more than what he was.
He was over.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get over.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit how good.
For a gimmick guy, a gimmick guy, it's hard for a gimmick guy to get over.
It's hard to get over.
Everybody, yeah.
And he got over everywhere he went. And that's a remarkable career. People, you can say whatever you want about his wrestling style, his wrestling ability. He got over.
He did.
That is all. When you walk out of the ring, all you care about is, did you leave everybody standing up? And he did. And that to me is a worker.
He did. And for over 30 years, he was over no matter where he went. And people loved him and people remember him. And he wasn't polished, he wasn't perfect, but he was exactly what you want him to be. Just a big friendly country boy.
Well, Kurt,
howdy neighbor.
Yeah, howdy neighbor.
Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And let us know where all can we get your book for people out there?
Well, it's available on Amazon. It's Howdy Neighbor, Stan Plowboy Frazier and His Appetite for Life. Yeah.
Awesome.
And if you want an autographed copy, you could just find me on the internet.
Perfect. Kurt, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.